From links to Lord of the Rings, to Darth Vader and Boba Fett being brothers, we look at 50 awesome Star Wars facts. Fact 1. In 1973, George Lucas submitted to Universal Studios and United Artists a 13-page rough copy of his sci-fi story, originally titled The Star Wars. This followed the success of his earlier film American Graffiti, which was nominated for 5 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. Both studios passed as they believed Lucas's idea was too confusing. However, 20th Century Fox head Alan Ladd Jr. gave Lucas a preliminary deal in 1974 to eventually make the movie. The average length for a screenplay is between 95 and 125 pages, but the final screenplay George handed in was 200 pages long. This forced Lucas to remove the final 2 acts, and the first act slowly became Episode 4. The other 2 acts were later fleshed out and expanded upon into what would become The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Fact 2. In order to get 20th Century Fox to approve what was then a massive budget of $10 million, Lucas pitched Star Wars with a series of 21 drawings he commissioned from illustrator Ralph McQuarrie. The drawings included scenes of C-3PO and R2-D2 crash landing on Tatooine, the Mos Eisley Cantina, the Millennium Falcon in Docking Bay 94, the attack on the Death Star Trench, and a floating city in the clouds which later became Bespin in The Empire Strikes Back. Fact 3. Lucas and his friend slash fellow director Brian De Palma, who was casting for Carrie at the time, shared a 7-month-long casting session for Star Wars. George wanted unknown faces that he never worked with before. Even though Harrison Ford worked on American Graffiti playing the part of Bob Falfa, he was chosen to play Han Solo after how well he was able to feed lines to actors auditioning for roles in the film. Fact 4. Speaking of casting for Han Solo, Lucas auditioned many now familiar faces like Jack Nicholson, Nick Nolte, and Christopher Walken. In addition, even though Han was originally going to be a green alien, at one point he was reimagined as the Black Man. This led Lucas to auditioning the likes of Glenn Turman and Billy D. Williams for the role. Fact 5. The relatively small production at Elstree Studios in England meant that wherever possible, corners had to be cut. When Luke and Leia had to perform their iconic swing across the Death Star chasm, Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher had to do it themselves as the production couldn't afford stunt doubles. The safety harness secured actors swung across the platform 30 feet above the studio floor in one take. This is what you see in the final movie. However, the drop was lengthened in post-production using a matte painting to make the pit seem bottomless. Fact 6. Less than 40 theatres agreed to book showings of Star Wars as it was widely believed the film would bomb. Around the same time, 20th Century Fox was going to release an eagerly anticipated adaptation of best-selling book The Other Side of Midnight, a film theatres wanted to show. Fox made the stipulation that any theatre that planned on showing The Other Side of Midnight had to also show Star Wars. This greatly increased the number of theatres that showed the space opera. It ended up being a good move as Star Wars was a massive success and became the highest grossing film ever made up to that point. In contrast, The Other Side of Midnight never even broke the $25 million mark. Because forcing theatres to show a film so that another could be shown was illegal, 20th Century Fox was fined $25,000. Fact 7. Lucas was originally in contention to direct Apocalypse Now, which ended up being directed by his friend and mentor Francis Ford Coppola. However, in 1981, George Lucas hinted that if he did get the directing role, then Star Wars may never have been made. Fact 8. Maybe Lucas wished he did get to direct Apocalypse Now, as he was diagnosed with hypertension and exhaustion as a result of filming Star Wars. Fact 9. John Ford's 1956 film, The Searchers, was an early influence on Star Wars. Its saloon scene partially inspired the cantina scene. Fact 10. Greedo was a woman.
Say what?
Well, at least in some scenes. The costume for Greedo, the alien that was shot by Han, but let's not get into the inevitable debate, was worn by 2 different actors depending on the country where filming was done. Greedo as Paul Blake in the UK shot scenes, and Canadian actress Maria de Aragon played Greedo in the US scenes. Fact 11. Before the opening of the movie, the production offices faced a rush of theft. As the film gained more hype, people were desperate to get a hold of any Star Wars memorabilia. Thousands of colour transparencies were stolen and sold for $5 each on the black market. Miniature models used to film spaceship scenes went missing also. Fact 12. Charles Lippincott was the film's unsung hero. Aware of the power of a sci-fi fan, Lippincott went to conventions to promote the movie. He was largely credited for bringing in huge audiences on the opening day. Fact 13. C-3PO speaks the first line in Episode 4 and the last line in Episode 3, both in the same location, a corridor on the Tantive 4. Fact 14. The rubber and plastic that made up the joints in C-3PO's suit approached melting point when filming the desert scenes. It was so bad that it became dangerous for actor Anthony Daniels, who hated the suit. The one part of the suit that was not in danger of melting was the eyes, which were covered in real gold. He should have just taken the suit to cash for gold. Fact 15. Speaking of C-3PO, the motors in the doors that operated windows in an old Cadillac Eldorado became the motor sound used for C-3PO walking. Fact 16. The sounds the Sand People make were created by sound designer Ben Burtt, who recorded donkeys braying. Fact 17. The very first accepted special effects shot was the Death Star firing its laser cannon, which was photographed by Dennis Muren. Fact 18. The director of Captain America created Boba Fett. Yes, you heard right. Even though Ralph McQuarrie had some input in The Mandalorian, Joe Johnston is widely credited with creating the look of Fett's armour. There are many detailed drawings to prove so and a video screen test. Fact 19. Speaking of Boba Fett, Lucas originally planned for Darth Vader to be an intergalactic bounty hunter. However, when Vader became a fallen Jedi instead, the bounty hunter concept was passed off to Fett. Fact 20. Even though Lucas backed out of directing Episode 5, he remained a very hands-on producer, guiding the film throughout production. He offered the directing role to his old USC professor, Irvin Kershner, even though he had never done such a big budgeted film before. Kershner actually turned down the offer initially, as he believed the original film could not be topped. Lucas then informed him that The Empire Strikes Back wouldn't try to surpass Episode 4, it would simply build on its mythology. With Lucas's reassurance, Kershner changed his mind and so accepted the role. I think what helped was the fact his agent reminded Kershner that the job would be very lucrative. Fact 21. The Empire Strikes Back begins on Hoth, which was partially shot on location at the Hardangerfjordkulen Glacier, definitely butchered that, in Norway. The -20 degrees weather was so bad that the crew was unable to leave their hotels for fear of whiteouts and worse. Instead of delaying shooting, Kershner and the crew set up insert shots from the entrance of their hotel. One of these shots was Luke escaping the Wampa cave. Fact 22. The Wampa suit was so large that it needed a ladder for access and stilts to operate. Fact 23. Elstree Studios was home for the building of sets. This was the same location where Stanley Kubrick was filming The Shining. In February 1979, a huge fire broke out which burned down an entire soundstage. This led Kubrick to taking over some of the Empire Studio space, and since he was a perfectionist, he delayed shooting for Kershner and co. by quite some time. Fact 24. On the topic of sets, the cheapest one was the interior of the giant space slug. This was because it was incredibly simple on the inside. The entire set consisted of black visqueen plastic laid on the floor, with black curtains behind the Millennium Falcon and a dry ice fog machine. Fact 25. C-3PO's interruption on Han and Leia's kiss aboard the Falcon was not in the script, and so was ad-libbed on set. Fact 26. So that the iconic Star Wars logo would remain with the opening crawl, Lucas and the filmmakers opted to put the full credits at the end of the movie, which was very unusual in the late 70s and early 80s. This caused both the writers and directors guilds to try to pull the movie from theatres because of credit rules. In Episode 4, Lucas's name was at the start of the film due to the Lucasfilm Limited title card, but on Empire, the director and writers were relegated to the end credits. Both guilds fined Lucas and Kirshner, who paid in full. Since the attempted sabotage nearly pulled the film from theatres, Lucas withdrew from the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, and the Motion Picture Association. He has yet to return to any of them. Fact 27. During the evacuation of Cloud City, you can see an extra running with what looks like an ice cream maker. The extra has since been given a backstory due to the expanded universe, and the supposed ice cream maker was turned into a database of contacts within the Rebellion. Only if there was someone on YouTube who made Star Wars lore videos, we could find out his story. Fact 28. As mentioned earlier, Lucas was not on good terms with the Directors Guild. Because of this, he could not have Steven Spielberg direct Return of the Jedi, as he was part of the guild. Years later though, he helped Lucas on Episode 3. When Lucas realised how big the project was going to be, he asked Spielberg to help him with some sequences, one of which was a lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. Fact 29. The working title was Blue Harvest, which was a reference to the 1929 novel Red Harvest. The novel inspired Yojimbo, which helped inspire the Star Wars films. Fact 30. Luke's lightsaber was originally going to be blue, but the colour was changed for two reasons. Lucas worried that having the blade the same colour would confuse audiences, as of course he lost his former blue-bladed weapon. Furthermore, blue matched too closely with the sky above the Sarlacc pit, and so the vibrant green colour was chosen. Fact 31. The Rancor was actually an 18-inch puppet operated by two puppeteers in front of a blue screen. For the final version of the film, Jabba's beast appears over 5 meters tall. In addition, it was filmed in slow motion to emphasise its movements and to make it look massive and menacing. Fact 32. There is a little nod to Lord of the Rings. The word Endor, which of course is the Ewok homeworld, is the word for Middle Earth in the Elvish language used in J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings mythology. Fact 33. The speeder chase on Endor was filmed in the Redwood State Park near Eureka, Caliph, which was about to be cut down for logging. This gave the production a lot of freedom, which they fully capitalised on. To make the chase sequence look like it was a race at breakneck speeds, Steadicam operators walked a slow step-by-step path through the forest and shot at 3/4 frames per second for hours. When sped up on film to 24 frames per second, the speeders appeared to be going at 120 miles per hour. Fact 34. Sybil Danning, who was a B-movie actress, was originally going to be cast in the role of a sexy witch who would eventually seduce Anakin Skywalker to the dark side. I would say that idea was scrapped, but of course Palpatine was a sexy witch. Fact 35. The laser shooting sound effect for the droidicas was actually recorded during Episode 5's production. It was made from an airgun firing bits of metal used during Luke and Vader's lightsaber duel in the carbon freezing chamber. When making the prequel trilogy, Lucas and co tried to use as many sound effects from the original trilogy as possible, so they were familiar to the audience. Fact 46. Speaking of sound effects, Sebulba's Podracer used the sounds from a Ferrari and Anakin's used a Porsche's. Fact 47. Back in 1998, there was no YouTube. Don't worry, that's not a fact. Meaning, it was somewhat difficult to find trailers. The teaser for The Phantom Menace was attached to the movie Meet Joe Black. This caused attendance for the film to spike. However, apparently audiences walked out after watching the teaser and before the feature even started. Fact 48. Lucas's daughter Katie appears as a Twilight dancer in Episode 2. Her sister Amanda appears as a background extra, and their brother Jet appears as a young Padawan in the Jedi Archives. Fact 39. The creature seen grazing in the fields behind Anakin and Padme's cringe fest, scene, can be seen again later in the film as an asteroid. Fact 40. Not long before Anakin goes in search for his mother on Tatooine, you can see his shadow as he's talking to Padme. And there you go, there's a fact. We are now scraping the bottom of the barrel. Of course, I'm only joking. That'll only happen if we do a part 3. Haha. Anyway, his shadow looks like Darth Vader, but it was not meant, just an unbelievable coincidence. Fact 41. The movie saw the first time that Yoda wielded a lightsaber, something the puppet in the original trilogy had trouble with. During rehearsals, a small Yoda model was put in place for Christopher Lee to use as a reference for the Yoda and Count Dooku lightsaber duel. However, the model was given a pair of vampire fangs as a joke about Lee's historic role as Dracula. Fact 42. Attack of the Clones is the only film in the franchise that was not a top earner. Even though it earned $302 million in domestic box office receipts, it lost out to both Spider-Man and Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Fact 43. Revenge of the Sith has the most lightsaber battles out of any of the movies. Be sure to go back and watch Revenge of the Sith to count how many there was. Nah, I'm only joking, there's 5. Fact 44. Silas Carson played 2 characters and subsequently died as 2 characters. He played Ki-Adi-Mundi and Newt Gunray, a good and a bad guy. Fact 45. The top-down shot of the severely burned Darth Vader holds a secret. Vader is framed within the symbol of the Galactic Empire. Fact 46. Episode 3 was the only movie in the franchise not to be rated PG. It was rated PG-13 by the MPAA for sci-fi violence and some intense images, which Lucas attributes with Anakin's gruesome transformation into Vader. Lucas said, "I would take a 9 or 10-year-old to it, or an 11-year-old, but I don't think I would take a 5 or 6-year-old to this. It's way too strong. I could pull it back a little, but I really didn't want to." Fact 47. Every Star Wars film has been released after Lucas's birthday on the 14th of May. I was about to say that's going to stop with The Force Awakens, but technically that is after the 14th of May. Very stupid. Very stupid indeed. Fact 48. There are shot-for-shot recreations of Episode 4 and 5 made from fan tribute videos. Fact 49. Lucas considered revealing that Vader and Boba Fett were brothers in the prequels, but he decided not to after realising the idea was too hokey. Fact 50. With the final fact, it's only fitting that we end the video with the movie that started the whole franchise. Yeah, let's go with that, and bypass the fact that I totally forgot to group this with the rest of the Episode 4 facts. I dug myself out that hole. In early drafts, the script was entitled Adventures of Luke Starkiller as taken from the Journal of Wills Saga 1, The Star Wars. Later it was changed to The Star Wars, before being shortened again to just Star Wars. Let me know what your favourite fact was by leaving a comment down below, and if you have any topic suggestions for 50 facts, then let me know. For more Star Wars facts, click on the playlist for the fact series I made a while back, or part 1 to this video. And for more Star Wars related videos, keep it locked here to the Kangaroos.